It's time for the Lips of Lethal.
Bojo Hacker, run to the front of Lynchy.
Lynch can't manufacture a mark. Ackermanis, left foot snap. Ackermanis has kicked a goal.
Well, we know that Dustin Martin is playing his 300th game next week. He's just been one of the outstanding players of this century. But it got me thinking, where does he rank in just this century? We only have players who started this century in the early 2000s. By virtue of his 3 Norm Smith medals, sort of puts him in rarefied air. I mean, that's an incredible achievement. But I always look at footballers in their upper level. That's a judgment call. How good are they on their good days? How consistent they are, how close to their upper level do they play, and their longevity. You've got to play for probably 250, 300 games. So when I was doing my 3 and trying to get rid of a bit of Regency bias, these were the 3 players I thought that were 1, 2, 3 as we go in from this particular century. And yes or no, Dustin Martin's not in it. Oh. I went for Lance Franklin 1. Gary Ablett Jr., I think they're standouts, to be honest. Then you go into who would be 3rd, and certainly Dustin Martin would be in this category. I put Patrick Dangerfield in. These 3 players are the only 3 players this century to be in 8 All-Australian teams. So they have sustained excellence. Just a matter of how much you rate Dusty's 3 Norm Smith medals in. Where does that put him? I mean, they're only 3 games, 3 big games, and he was outstanding in them. Everyone would love to be played really well on the big occasion. He's certainly done that. But anyway, there'll be a lot of discussion this week about where Dusty fits in this, and it's all a matter of opinion, obviously. But the way I look at it, I would put Dusty alongside your Chris Jard, your Matthew Pavlich, Joel Selwood, Scott Pendlebury, other great players who played their whole career this century.
Leigh, there'd be a lot of Richmond fans throwing their popcorn at the TV right now because they would say that Dustin Martin is the best player of the 21st century. Given he won 3 Norm Smith medals, Jimmy, that is when you need to succeed, as you did. What do you make of that top 3, and what's your top 3?
Oh, it's an incredible top 3. I was fortunate enough to play with 2 of those gentlemen, and unfortunately against Lance Franklin and Dustin Martin. Look, I'm only going to go the best player for me, and this is completely biased. Yes. Well, I played the bulk of my career with Gary Ablett Jr., and that's a complete biased opinion, and I'm going to be smart enough to stay away from giving you a top 3 because, Tom, I want to ask you...
Wait, can I just say one more thing on Leigh on this? Would you have Dusty number 4 then, or do you think he's not even in the top 5, Leigh?
I would say Chris Judd and Dusty sort of in that next category, I think. Again, the Norm Smith medal, the 3 Norm Smith medals is an enormous achievement, but it's only 3 games in his 300.
It's an incredible career.
I think Buddy, Gary Ablett and Dusty, you could argue either of them is number 1, but they're my top 3.
They're all...
For whatever it's worth.
They're all absolute champions of the game. Speaking of Dusty, I just want to know, what was your feedback like in the last 7 days when you tried to actually make a case that it was wrong for Richmond to play Dustin Martin over in Adelaide instead of at the MCG in front of 85,000 adoring fans?
Well, I'm happy to say this. Given that Richmond beat the Adelaide Crows, I was wrong. I didn't think the Tigers were
so
any chance to beat the Crows.
So do you think the result actually mattered in your decision?
Absolutely. I thought that they were going over there thinking, we're not going to win. We'll just prepare for the next week at the MCG. They beat the Crows. So I hold my hand up. They did the right thing. They left him out, and now they're playing him. Oh, yeah, only because they won. Of course, it's a win-loss business, Jimmy. But can I just say on Dusty as well, this week's going to be really interesting to see whether he does any media at all. The plan at this stage is for Dusty to do no interviews, not even with the club website, not even with Jack Rewalt of Fox Footy or someone at the host broadcaster. That is the plan at the moment. And then the extension of that is, would the AFL be brave enough? I say no, but would they be brave enough to fine Dusty or Richmond $10,000, as is their media policy, for not doing interviews? I mean, there's going to be lots of other celebrations. Saturday's going to be huge at the MCG. It will be a talking point this week as we celebrate the career of Dustin Martin. Let's talk about St Kilda versus the Gold Coast Suns. Not a game we'll talk about beyond tonight, I would have thought, but in the end it was the Saints who won their 2nd straight game. Let's have a listen to what Damien Hardwick and Ross Lyon had to say after this pretty ordinary match.
It was a terrible game of footy. Yeah, I'm perfectly honest. A horrific game of footy. So it's not a game that I love. To be honest, it was 125 uncontested marks going backwards, sideways. We couldn't find a way through. Credit where credit's due. They defended really well. It's a different defence than we've been up against before. We sort of knew it was coming, but just didn't handle it too well.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. So they had 19 backwards kicks. We had 6. So I thought we went forward. Felt we took it on. But, yeah, the messy bit for us is leaving a stack of goals on the table.
They're kidding, aren't they? Yeah, both of them are to blame for that game that should be stuck in a spaceship and shot into space to never be seen again. Let's start with you, Ross. These are some of the results at Marvel. This is total combined scores, so both teams plus their scores together. And you have a look at the common denominator there. The lowest scoring game is the Dogs and the Giants, but the asterisk on that was a COVID year, so 20% less game time. If you had the 20% juice on it, it's about 108 points. The remaining 4 games, Dogs Saints, North Saints, that shocker the other night, Saints versus Gold Coast, and Saints versus Sydney under Ross Lyon. And Damien Hardwick, you don't go without blame too.
Oh.
You know how Ross Lyon sets up the game. Yeah. You've had all week and all year to prepare for it, and you fell into the trap. The Saints did what they had to do to win, but we should never, ever, ever have to be tortured through another game like that again. It was horrific.
Leigh, quickly on the Saints, do the fans care that they're so low scoring if they win?
I think they prefer to win low scoring than lose high scoring, and it's amazing, isn't it, how the winning coach is sort of satisfied and the losing coach is very dissatisfied. Nothing unusual about that.
Speaking of disappointing, the Suns, geez, I mean, we pump them up and they bring us down every second week, especially when they're away from home. Their record now, Jimmy and Leigh, is stark, and there it is, 7-0 at home. 0-6 away from home.
Yeah, 70-point difference there. But I think this is a side going from a very, very poor side in its history and trying to be a good side.
We expect more than that, Jimmy.
Yeah,
they expect to be playing finals. They cannot be dishing that up.
No, I think with the expectation, and you're doing the road to 13, you probably think they're beating the Saints, especially the way the Saints are playing. But they didn't play a style of football that challenged the Saints on the scoreboard or play quick enough. I think they were all happy to fill their boots standing up across half-back. You look at the numbers, they were ridiculous across half-back.
Yeah, they don't deserve to play finals if they're going to play it like that, and they certainly won't win a final outside of Queensland if they play that sort of footy as well.